just tuned into the Shadowsphere. Welcome to the Shadowsphere, where the whispered truth comes in loud and clear. Laugh in the dark as the clues appear. Yeah, we shine that light in the Shadowsphere.
Thanks for tuning in and welcome to the Shadowsphere. Scals, hit record.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into the Shadowsphere. We are on episode 9 of the Deathmatch series, and today I am the man who brings everybody's favorite things into the ring and ringside. He is Billy, the Janitor. How are you, my guy?
Hello. Doing well. Thanks for having me, man.
Hey, man, I got to talk to the guy that loves to... I've seen some of the stuff you've been creating via Instagram and stuff. Man, where does your mind go when you're doing these things?
Well, I guess it's a combination of, obviously, it's got to be visually appealing. There's a lot of stuff that, looks violent, but not necessarily as noticeable or recognizable. But there's that. There's obviously, damage factor within reason. But also, I find nostalgia is a huge part of it. Anything you can pull out of people's childhoods or things that they have experienced, like Lego's a classic one, or even just like hockey sticks or, plastic toy bats that we had as kids, or things that you actually would have been hit with that you can kind of get a grasp on. But yeah, I mean, a lot of it is, there is a sort of tried and true arsenal of deathmatch weaponry, but I'm also an avid thrift store shopper. So you just browsing through, see what looks violent, and yeah, just kind of let my imagination run wild.
So I know when I spoke to you briefly at Crazy 8, you had said that, or at least I overheard, maybe I wasn't exactly in the conversation, but you had said that your garage and just dragging stuff in and your neighbors kind of like eyeing you up. What is that like? Do you have a hard time explaining that that's what you do for fun to people?
I've gotten to the point now where I've just completely embraced it. It's funny too, because I live in like a townhouse complex, so it's not like I'm just like a house on a street. Like I literally, my door, and then like I have a neighbor's door right next to mine, and the neighbor, and then right across the street there's the next set of units. So there's probably a dozen houses that face mine and right around. So at this point they all just know what I do. I've just explained it to them and shown them, and right now my garage is full of, I could probably count the blood of at least 10, 12 different people in my garage on different chairs or pieces of barbed wire or pieces of glass or whatever. But even right now I've got some stuff right here. That's Kyle. That's from last night, actually. That was a tack pad that they use. So my garage is full of that. It's eventually things get cleaned up and whatever, but it's inevitable. After a show you're tired as hell, so you just kind of clean up and go home. But I got my souvenirs, but my neighbors think it's pretty fun. They just kind of, we're not doing the death matches in my garage. So, they just kind of,
Yet.
Hey, we'll see. But just coming home and, we got more light tubes, or, those are some nice chairs. Where'd you get them? Or, we just talk about it. So, yeah, I mean, my favorite was one time, we got a new fridge and we were selling our old one on Marketplace. So, my neighbor was helping me move it out of the garage for the woman who was coming to pick it up, and she just kind of came in and was helping us, and she just looked in the corner, and I just had just a barbed wire baseball bat, just classic wooden baseball bat wrapped in barbed wire, and she just kind of looked down at it and was just like, where am I? Like, what? And I was like, I don't know. I don't know how to explain this. If I need a quick out, I say they're props. I'm like, I do like movie props or something if I need like a quick out. But yeah, most of the time I'm just open. I've made people fans that way, or, gone to pick up something off Marketplace and be like, oh, you having a party for these chairs? It's like, no. Look at this.
No, it's a party, but not the kind you're thinking of.
Yeah, no. They're not seating. They never will be seating again.
I can't imagine you'd ever want to be a person of interest in any kind of issue, because your garage would not help you.
Especially if it involved any of these guys, because it's like, what is it doing? Like, I just posted like a picture on my story on Instagram. It's a chair from last night, and there's just like a smear down it. Like, it's just
Officer, I swear I could point out when this happened. Hang on.
yeah, it's just, I mean, for that one mainly, yeah, I actually, there's a lot of them, or, some of them get familiar, or, chairs, I get them secondhand, so certain colors or whatever, so you can go home and be like, oh, this is the green chair from so-and-so, that's Tyler Arrow, and this is probably Brandon St. James, and that's,
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So I guess my next question is, how long have you been a wrestling fan, and what actually inspired you to get behind the scenes and be the deathmatch janitor?
Yeah, wrestling fan, a pretty classic trajectory. Do I think most people was huge into it when I was a kid in the late 90s, early 2000s, had played all the video games, spent a lot of time doing that, kind of dipped off probably in the late 2000s, probably around 2008 or 9. And then later on, it was actually, of all things, my partner and my girlfriend and I were on a vacation. We were in a hotel. I was just flicking through the channels, and of all things, the hotel had like the El Rey network, and Lucha Underground was on.
Hell yeah.
It just came in, and I just was like, wait, Chavo Guerrero? Like, who? I know him. And then it just kind of, I watched it, and then I kind of started being interested, and then, you end up on YouTube watching What Culture lists, at least you did back in the day, and then you kind of slowly get into the modern product. But Deathmatch from there was a pretty quick, as soon as I started getting back into things, probably, 10 plus years ago now. I'd be a big fan of like ECW hardcore stuff back in the day. So I just kind of looked in to see what was going on with sort of hardcore wrestling, found CZW Tournament of Death, and just, snowballed from there. But in terms of my involvement with Canadian Deathmatch, it was really just, I say luck on my end. I guess maybe they wouldn't describe it that way, but I heard they were running a show in Hamilton, which is, I'm in Hamilton. The venue they were running is like 10 minutes from me. So they said they were running a deathmatch tournament. I still had never been to one. Like, I'd seen Death Proof a few times. I don't think I'd seen them do a tournament yet, at least not like an in-ring deathmatch tournament. And I just reached out and said, hey, do you need a hand? Like, if there's anything I can do, let me know. Kind of started throwing the marketplace links, and just kept having what they needed when they needed it. And just after the first show, it was pretty obvious to them that they were going to need someone to sort of lead that part of the backstage, and sort of the role just kind of fell into my lap, and I'm happy to do it. It's a lot of fun. I've got a couple of people now who are, are almost my like janitorial assistants, people I can lean on, and it's great.
I mean, I've been watching Canadian Deathmatch grow from the infancy stage into, I guess you can call it the toddler stage now, because it's been a couple of years. I've been along for that ride. I was scheduled to come out to the first show. Unfortunately, life events happened otherwise. So I've watched many deathmatch hours. I've watched clips. I've watched, I got a few friends that are into it. Never been to a show up until this past April, where I'm coming to live with you guys. And I remember just arriving at the venue, and it doesn't feel, mind you, the venues are way different, but like when you walk into like a WWE show versus when you walk into an indie show, walk into a WWE show, you feel small. You feel, well, I'm just here, right?
Yeah.
When you walk into an indie venue, you feel like you're a part of something that's about to blow up. And that's how I felt. My first live introduction to deathmatch wrestling was Tyler Arrow and Brandon St. James, like live.
Yeah,
what
that is
match to take in for your first time, right?
Yeah, and I think that's sort of what we aim to do. In terms of Canadian Deathmatch, and I'm behind the scenes. I'm part of I'm part of the ownership team, so a lot of responsibilities there. So yeah, but it's something we wanted to do from the beginning, from when we started doing this, was create something that, that people could experience, especially, with the focus on no ring and stuff. It's that, it's the same thing that I love about, I'm a huge, heavy metal fan. I love going to concerts, but I haven't been to a stadium show in probably 10 years. I just go to, local bar shows, see the local bands. You can go up to them after the show, shake their hand, say you did, that was a great job. See you when you come back next time. Go outside, smoke a bowl with them or whatever. It's so much more of an intimate social experience, rather than just being a person and sitting in your assigned seat and then going home when it's done. But yeah, we want to make people feel like they're part of something when they come to a show.
I mean, I I'm sure maybe you remember the interaction a little bit, but I remember showing up at the Germania, looking around, coming in. I found you, and I have this little title belt in my hand. That is my podcast title. And I was like, man, I'd be loving it if you could show it to these boys. And you kind of looked at me and says, I don't know, but we're going to find out. And that's the moment I knew, like, I was in the place where I needed to be, because you didn't say, no, go the fuck away. You said, I'm going to go at least try for you, even though most of the weapons already been there all day for them to figure out.
Yeah, I mean, that's something I like to try to do too, is because, at least almost for my own sanity, I try not to be the person who tells the talent what weapons to use. I provide options and let them pick, or if someone asks for something specifically, or will workshop ideas, but I'm not trying to push someone beyond what they're comfortable with, or into something they don't want to do. So yeah, for that Fans Bring the Weapons match, it was just, I really, it was an awesome, I thought it was, my hesitation, if any, was just because it was beautiful. It was like it had weight to it. People have given you like toy old WWE belts and that, but that had weight to it, right? So that was beautiful. But no, I had that backstage with me. Hardcore came back and was just kind of looking at my, I got a, table out back in the backstage, just full of weapons for people to pick from. And yeah, I showed him this and said, we got a guy here, asked if we could, get this featured in match some point. And he said, I'm going to give JVC a pile driver on it. I was like, sick. Okay, cool. Done.
Yeah, I didn't let Hardcore know that I was coming. Like, me and him, I bonded over the last couple of years. I've had him on as a guest a couple of times on shows. And I didn't even tell him I was coming, because I wanted to make my first interaction as like genuine as possible. Like, I feel like if I show up and I'm coming, it's more of like a fabricated thing. And that's not what I wanted. Like, we had talked many times over the internet, but never face to face. And I just wanted that experience. Just like Dylan didn't know I was coming. The only person that knew I was coming was Sean. And that's because I was talking to him a couple days prior to it. But like, you guys are genuinely the nicest people I've ever met.
Well, thank you. No, it's as violent and as abrasive as the wrestling itself can be to the outside observer. It's it's very much a found family. It's if you're here in the building, you're kind of one of us. If you're willing to kind of come here and spend your money to spend your afternoon watching this, you're in the right place.
Like, man, I can tell you, I've been to indie shows, like traditional indie shows. I've now been to Deathmatch indie show. I have been to WWE. I've been to AEW. And maybe this is me being biased, because, again, you guys are my boys and I want to see you grow and succeed. And I've been here since the ground. But arguably my favorite show I've been to is this one. Again, the atmosphere is unmatched. The wrestling, despite how fucking extreme and hardcore it goes, arguably the safest I've ever seen it. Like, and that is kudos to everybody, including you, because you make sure that the stuff that they're using isn't going to like impale them. There's a chance, but you guys are all safe, and I condemn, not condemn, that's the wrong word, but condone, that's the right word. I condone the fact that you guys are all safe. Especially, like, I looked at the one in the weapons match, the fucking antlers wrapped in barbed wire. Like, what the fuck?
That was one of the Fans Bring the Weapons. That was actually, I think, if I remember correctly, that was on the opposite side of where you were sitting, the dudes in the lucha masks.
Yeah. Yeah,
those guys are the deathmatch luchas. I've never seen them with their masks off, and I don't want to, because I just like keeping the mystery of
the war.
I don't know. I have no idea who they are. I get to see them on the street and not know, and that's fun. I don't know. It's fun to have a gimmick. They brought that. I don't know if they ripped it off like one of their cottage walls or something, but they just showed up with that and just said, "Hey, here you go." And
I can't say I've never seen a fan have a gimmick as a green shirt guy, but I've never seen a fan have a masked gimmick like these four guys. So shut up to the deathmatch lucha.
I mean, I've got like toy loot, like prop lucha masks, the ones you get in like Mexico, the cheap ones, just like, and I'm pretty sure that's what they're wearing. And those things are hot. Like, they're not breathable in any way. They're not comfortable to wear. So that's
and like, no disrespect to the one guy, but he's a husky guy like me. I can't imagine staying under a mask that entire show, man.
Yeah, no, and they're outside, like, smoking joints in their masks and everything. It's great. I don't know. It makes me really happy that there's people who care enough about what we do to like kind of join in on the sort of whole kayfabe fun of it all. Like, I don't know, it's great.
Like, my wife is very she loves the deathmatch scene, like the way it brings, because she loves the gore and the blood of it all. But we were sitting there and she goes, I feel very out of place, but not in a negative way, but because you look around and what you feel is more of a death metal crowd. And I think that's the easiest way to put it, right? Death metal would be death match wrestling and, whatever. And I was like, yes, you might feel out of place, but you see anybody here looking at you? No, they're enjoying you. They want you here. They're friendly. Yeah. And like, it was such a welcoming atmosphere. Like nobody was causing a scene other than the lady running around the ring.
Yeah, that lady was, and it was like just up until the point. She was just, clearly had a couple of drinks and was just having fun. She wasn't, if it's somebody, we've had people on our shows who are like, having a few too many drinks and then they'll like get too close to the action or start like, one time we had a show in Hamilton at a place called the Absinthe. I don't think they're open anymore, but I think it was Matt Cash and Jesse Mack were fighting each other. And one point Matt Cash was like sitting in a chair, kind of, selling, sitting there all bloodied up. And the guy kind of comes around, starts patting him on the back, puts his arm around him. And like, I was like, that dude's just covered in like cuts and stuff. So please, but also like, I mean, I don't think any of us could stop him if Matt Cash decided he didn't want that to happen.
But that's like another element too, is like what you guys do isn't like for, I mean, the wrestling is for everybody. That's not what I'm saying. But like, it's not for the fans that try to get handsy, because if these guys go at you, you're going to get fucked up. I mean, even in WWE, you're going to get fucked up, but there's less boundaries when it comes to like the shows you guys put on.
I mean, there is and there isn't. That's not something, if there was ever something that was going to happen, my top priority would be to just, have that person leave. Like, again, like you said before, right? As, as contrary as it seems, like I'm there to make things as safe as possible. It's as weird as it sounds, right? So there is that kind of stuff where it's you as an audience have a role to play in maintaining that safety, and anyone who kind of steps out of that, like I've had that guy specifically, I got like right in his face and said, you've got two options, either, act like everybody else or get the fuck out kind of thing, one of the two. So we're not going to have, I would absolutely regret to have some sort of incident where anything like, popped off, but just, you want to eliminate those opportunities or those chances as much as possible. But thankfully, our fans are pretty much all wonderful people and all get along. And I think that's part of it. And, just watch what's going on in the ring. You don't need to be getting involved yourself.
I've told Dylan and I've told a few others that I've interviewed so far. We went to Guelph after Crazy 8 and we're sitting down eating dinner, me and my two kids, my older two kids and my wife. And my wife's going like this, and she's still combing some pieces of like, light tube out of her hair. And I was like, look, that's the fun of it. Like, I got hit with a few things that I wasn't expecting for sure. And like, I was like, man, it didn't even matter to me. I was like, this is just fucking badass.
It's part of the show, and it is something that we try to at least warn people about in the beginning. Kind of most people there know what they're getting themselves into. With a venue like Germania, it does get a little bit crossover because it is such a iconic, like historic wrestling venue. There's an indie show running there pretty much every weekend, if not 2 or 3 a weekend. But like, traditional wrestling. So there are a lot of fans who will just go to Germania for a wrestling show when there's a wrestling show on. So there is a little bit of that at our shows. But for the most part, I just, you try as best as you can. And at the same time, it's just, again, that venue is beautiful because it's got the balcony. Anyone who really doesn't want to be in the splatter zone. Yeah. But, that was me last night. I was working with New Fear City, Casanova Valentine. He ran a show in Toronto. And, yeah, him and Matt Cash were in basically what was more or less a basement, just swinging light tubes at each other. And I was like, probably 10 feet away from them, just kind of standing in the side, just raining down on me. But hey, it's you got your glasses on, I got my coveralls on. That's what I'm here for.
Now, is your day-to-day life a janitor too, or are you very much different in that occupation?
Not even close. I work in tech. I do QA stuff for software development. It's a pretty boring day job, but yeah, I troubleshoot software basically.
That doesn't. This might sound assholeish, but that doesn't surprise me. You're a smart guy.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, but no, it's just wrestling has always just been a huge passion of mine. So it was just and hey, I'm not making any money off of this. And I don't think there's very few people in indie wrestling, like talent alone, that are making a living on it, and like I'm absolutely not going to be one of them. But it's love of the game, and that's why I do it, right? So
that's what I was going to say. Is like, there's this thing going around on social media right now of people kind of mocking indies, and I mean that's never going to stop because people think they're better than now, but I'm struggling to come up with the words with this because, like, I'm someone that is trying to look at like all filters of life when it comes to wrestling, professional wrestling, indie wrestling. It doesn't matter. But then I see these things where people are online of the IWC going, "Oh, indie wrestling, you're just a hot dog and a handshake." Blah blah blah. Not everybody, and like you just said, not everybody's in it to make the money, man. They love the game, and that's why they do it.
Well, to me, it's the exact same thing as sort of music. Like I'm wearing a DSI shirt right now. Like I'm a huge heavy metal fan. Like, I love to, like I said, I go to see local shows and things like that. And lots of these bands have just been, they've been touring for 10 years. They just do it because it's something they love to do. They're on the road meeting like-minded people and just experience. Like, I don't know. Like it's in indie wrestling, like any other form of expression is art. And if it's art that you enjoy doing, then go ahead and do it for the people who are interested in, absorbing it. And at the same time, like for every professional sports league, there's how many minor leagues and how many beer leagues or, pick up leagues or whatever you want to call it. Like there's every tier of sport exists, and why not? Like wrestling, there's going to be people who just only want to wrestle occasionally on the weekends, and why not? Like not everyone has to be like a diehard lifer. I know that's the way to get, exceptional at wrestling, but not everybody has to be. We can just have fun.
Yeah, and I think it's a testament to the guys that do it for the love of the game, then rather than the guys that, not that saying that the guys that do it on a daily basis are already different, but like there's the guys who are the weekend warriors, like you said, or there's the guys that are the lifers, and you're all very skilled in what you do. It's just one does it up for a lot less money and the other does it for the love of the game.
Yeah, I mean, and again, with bands and stuff, like I've seen some awful stadium performances from bands that you paid a lot of money for, and I've seen incredible performances from a couple of teenagers in a dirty bar. Like it's, it doesn't matter. It's just people can, you can see incredible performances anywhere.
I guess to that point, 2008 8. I seen a band called Silverstein live in Saskatoon, open air stadium. Shitty ass show as possible, man. But I see them in a dive bar in Saskatoon a year later. Fucking exceptional.
Yeah, no, Silverstein are from basically where I am from, and so I used to see them at like the YMCA growing up. I mean, and again, like at state concerts, especially for like anything under the sort of like rock music, guitar driven umbrella. Like that's not what stadium sound systems are for, or it doesn't sound good when you just got like, if you've got like a lot of sound going on, but if it's just a couple of instruments, like it's just, and it's the same thing for our shows too, right? That connection to the crowd is lost. That like, direct connection between the performance and the audience, and, in no ring, you just rip that right off right out, and there's no barrier. So that's,
you're big into music, and maybe I'm not so versed in the music world anymore as I used to be. Are you into Linkin Park at all?
I mean, I listened to it when I was growing up a little bit, but it's good. It's just not something I'm overly into myself, but yeah.
The reason I ask is because I wanted your opinion, because you're a music guy. What your take on the fans comparing Chester to Emily, or Emily to Chester, excuse me.
I guess there's inevitable comparisons if you're like directly replacing someone from a band, especially someone with like such a distinctly iconic, powerful voice. But I don't know. I guess I don't know enough about the band to know like who was sort of the, one band usually has like a very strong creative talent or like sort of that leads the direction of them. I don't know enough to know who is that for Linkin Park or whatever. But I guess if the other, I don't know. I don't know enough about the discourse, but
that's fair.
I I did think it was just kind of weird and all of a sudden, but yeah, it's difficult with a band that means so much to so many people, I guess. I know that band is like near and dear to millions of people, so it's yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, no, 100%. I just don't remember the discourse being so discoursey, if you will. That's not even a word, but discoursey when Queen replaced Freddie with Adam. Like, there just didn't seem to be that much uproar when Adam took over in Queen. That's right. That's where I use a comparison, right? But Adam's got a unique voice too, so I don't know.
I guess that one almost feels more like a tribute act, if anything, because like I mean they were. I don't think they're writing new material or anything, but yeah, so. I mean, with the internet, unfortunately, there's always just going to be a healthy dose of misogyny in there. I mean, it'd be nice if we could avoid that, but I think that's probably has to do with it in the Linkin Park situation. I'm not saying she isn't capable. I'm just saying there's probably a lot of people who are, just angry that she's a woman, which fuck those people, but yeah.
Yep. Okay. I'm going to name off a few wrestlers. Could be professional, could be indie, could be deathmatch, whatever. First word that comes to mind when you hear it. Chris Jericho.
Over. Not over in a wrestling terms. Like he's just
get off the screen. Okay.
He's done.
New Jack.
Legend.
Mick Foley.
God.
Sabu.
Insane.
Eddie Kingston.
I've met him a few times. He's kind. He's wonderful. He's a wonderful person.
I want to get back to that. Adam Cole.
Underutilized. I'll make it a compound word.
Okay. Shinsuke Nakamura.
In one word is hard, but
you go a couple. I'm just the first thing that comes to your mind is kind of what I'm going at here.
His WWE run has been completely unmemorable.
Okay. AJ Styles.
Fine.
Okay. Takashka.
Scars.
Kenny Omega.
Arguably like one of the most important wrestlers of the last decade.
Okay, this is not wrestler, but it's still wrestling related. Paul Heyman.
Greasy. Like in terms of and like him as his personality, not appearance wise, but I mean I guess maybe, but
yeah. Vince McMahon.
Horrible.
That's fair. Get into this Eddie Kingston stuff. You met him a few times. Where did you meet him?
Well, I guess to meet, like I just Alpha One is a promotion that runs here in Hamilton. Has been for I think it's 2014 they started, maybe a little earlier. He was regular at their show, so I guess met is a bit of a stretch. But he would be at his merch table or around, and I shook his hand, introduced myself, we chatted just briefly or whatever. But I remember that being the one thing that struck me. It was just that I just started going to indie shows, so I'd been exploring indie wrestling from the past little while. He was someone I knew right away, and just the contrast of his in-ring persona, but then how just like a decent guy. It was like a really when you meet someone and they're just noticeably kind. I don't know. It stuck with me.
Another name that just came to mind just because you said the indie circuit. I know he was huge on the indies for a long period of time. Brody Lee.
Tragedy, but yeah. Yeah, he did wrestle for Alpha One a few times. I think it was just before I started going. I didn't get the chance to ever see him on his indie run, but yeah.
Okay. I loved it. My introduction to Brody Lee is when he worked with Bray Wyatt. Bray is one of my favorite all time. I have words tattooed of Bray's on my arm.
Yeah.
So, two very wrestling smart people gone way too soon.
Yeah, no, two more to add to the unfortunately long list.
Yeah, it's crazy, right? Considering that you see more traditional wrestlers die early than you see guys in deathmatch die early, I guess. Which is weird, right? Because of the shit they put themselves through.
I guess the sample size is a little smaller, but I think the thing with deathmatch is there's not a ton of guys who are like doing it every day, working the road, like, touring, doing like, 400 matches a year or whatever Hulk Hogan said he used to do.
That number's probably inflated to no tomorrow.
Oh, absolutely. But, whatever the quote is, right? But yeah, like, I think that might be it, or just, or the more grim answer of like, deathmatch has really only been a thing for like 20 years. Like, not really, but like, in terms of sort of the modern real iteration of it.
At least in North America, yeah.
Yeah, like, you've got what IWA Mid-South did the King of Death matches in 99. That's like, I guess, the peak. But, in terms of sort of the modern roster and guys who have been doing that style of wrestling for their whole career and that kind of stuff, yeah.
Now, when it comes to like ECW deathmatch and stuff like that, what is your take on the whole, and this has probably been beaten to death ad nauseum by most people that do this kind of thing, but the mass transit New Jack incident, where does that rank in your mind of how that could have easily been avoided? Or like, I'm sure you know enough about it. Everybody's known about it.
Well, I mean, as it goes back to, like, I think Paul Heyman is just not to be really trusted, and he seems to be the kind of guy who will, I don't know, like, do things that are not in people's best interest. And, I know the story of, somebody said he was trained, somebody vouched for him, whatever. But I guess it was one of those things where I think it was exacerbated by the circumstance of, the guy's father being there and stuff. But I guess it's much more a fault about the people who failed to vet him before letting him in the ring. I mean, obviously New Jack, but I mean, I've known wrestlers. Like, once you're in the ring, I'm not saying you're supposed to cut people up, but once you're in the ring, I can understand, kind of once you're in the zone, it's difficult to kind of contextualize things. But yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess if there's any blame to place, it'd be on whoever didn't do the due diligence and check, or if somebody did lie, whoever lied or whatever. But yeah, I mean, as far as those incidents goes, that one just seems like a bunch of like miscommunications, and there's no like bad, evil person in the story. It's just a lot of like small bad decisions that culminated into a, really shitty situation.
Fair enough. If you could book one venue for Canadian Deathmatch, where are you booking it and why?
Korakuen Hall in Japan.
Damn, I'm not expecting that answer.
I'm a big Japan freedoms. Like, Korakuen Hall, like, just to step in the venue is a life goal for me. So if we could somehow run there, like in a, dream scenario, easy.
Hell yeah. Okay. So let's bring it back to North America. Where are you running?
ECW Arena, probably. I just love those balconies. Like, I love the look of it. Like, obviously I love, the history of it, but just the look of it as well. I think if I had to pick one, that would be it. So
you're a big history guy when it comes to venues. So you must be super pumped that you guys are now working on your second show coming up for Sneaky D's.
Yeah, I mean, I'm born and raised in Ontario, so Sneaky D's is iconic for like so many reasons. There's so many legendary shows that have been there. It was featured in Scott Pilgrim, like it's where the band plays a gig at Sneaky D's in one of the comics. Yeah, and then to have all of that, and then I've seen a dozen shows at Sneaky D's over my life, and it was incredible to run there. And one of the things that I really enjoyed doing was, it's one of those punk bars that's covered in stickers and graffiti and things like that. So in the little supply room on the side of the stage where I had set up for the evening, I got to put my sticker on the wall next to all the different people who had, loaded in there before. So that was a cool moment for me, just personally, to actually just kind of pop it there. And I'm excited to check and see if it's still there in June. But yeah.
That's fucking awesome, man. As I spoke to earlier, Dylan, in an earlier interview of part of the series, Sticky D's hold a special place in my heart. I'm sure it's, like I said to Dylan, I'm sure it's gone over many more renovations since then, or maybe it hasn't. I don't know. I haven't stepped foot in that venue in a very long time. My dad actually worked on that venue in the 90s in a restoring effort or something. I don't remember exactly what it was. So like Sneaky D's holds a place in my own family lore, if you will.
Cool.
And I wish my dad was still around, because I would be like, Dad, let's go. Come to watch No Ring with me on June 20th. Because that place meant so much to him. He was a young teen, early 20 man in his, early in his 20s man living in Toronto, and that was a venue that, like you said, very iconic.
Yeah, and the staff there and everyone there is really, obviously wonderful people. It helps that they've got like a kick-ass restaurant underneath, and yeah, I've really, really enjoyed running there. I'm glad they're going to have us back, and yeah, Toronto's going to show up, and it's going to be incredible. We've got a lot of stuff going on, so yeah, that show is going to be a lot of fun.
It's funny because you look at that building and you go, that doesn't fit Toronto, what Toronto is now, because it's very much rustic 90s. Come fuck around and find out vibe than most of what you would see in Toronto nowadays.
Yeah, Toronto's still got that some places, but yeah, you gotta have to look for it more so than, say what it would have been, late 90s, early 2000s, where you could like afford to live here and be like a young starving artist and make cool things, that kind of vibe. Yeah.
I mean, Toronto's landscape, in my opinion, I moved away from 2002 to about 2010. I lived in Western Canada. But like coming home as an adult and really appreciating what Toronto had to offer as like an architectural standpoint, and like walking down Queen Street and seeing these iconic buildings. And now I've been back home for just almost 2 decades, and those iconic buildings that we once held at this standard are just now being refaced and changed, and we're losing a lot of it, and it sucks because Toronto sold out, I guess.
Yeah, it's the inevitable cause of, when money goes in, gentrification, that the cycle of that. Put it in a word, that's kind of, what you see. And yeah, I'm much more nostalgic for Hamilton than I am Toronto, just because it's where I grew up. But exactly the same thing, right? It's just, there's old neighborhoods that used to be like the sketchy neighborhoods that you don't go in. Now they're like, fancy condos, or, it's just like there's like the local flavor. All like the little dive bars are closing up, and, just the stuff that Hamilton's a steel town. It was for, working people. So
Hamilton guys are fucking nuts.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But
too many one-way streets.
Oh yeah, no, learning to drive in Hamilton is hell, but once you get used to the one-way streets, like you can just zip around the city so nicely.
That's fair. I mean, it's still not as nauseating as Oshawa is, but it's still just as bad.
Oh yeah,
Hamilton's a beautiful city.
We do have the worst roads in Canada, though. I think we were voted in some sort of thing, but in terms of like road quality, like in the city, it's just awful.
Listen, I understand that you're a Hamilton native. You love your city. I could tell when I'm in Hamilton because the air just smells different, man.
Well, you get used to it.
But that's what I mean. Like, I could be just coming up to Hamilton and I go like, yep, close enough. All right. And you just know you're there. Beautiful architect.
Hey,
beautiful architecture there, though.
You don't get to choose your home. Well, kind of. But, but where you grew up, like the place the place that you're tied to forever,
Listen, it could be worse. We both could live in Brampton now. So,
see, now we're on the same page.
That could be worse. So me and you kind of chit-chatting a little bit before we started recording this. You're also a collector. What do you collect, man?
I like to thrift, and I just like finding reasons to buy shit when I thrift. But retro video games, I did the whole collecting, sort of trying to get into it. Then I realized that there's no point in buying games I'm not actually going to play. So, I've got a collection of all of your old consoles. They all work. I can play them. I like those. Got the games that I actually want to play for them. A big one is like physical media. I love horror movies. I love shitty horror movies, like just, really low budget stuff. So I try to collect as much of that I can. VHS tapes, wrestling t-shirts, just lots of random stuff. Got a big record collection, cassette tapes. honestly, I just like I buy lots of random stuff. I love to just collect things, but I shy away from things that are sort of like designed to be collected. Like I'm not into like trading cards or anything like that. I've spent a lot of my life in thrift stores, which is a lot of what I do for, finding weapons. And it just, if I find cool things, I just kind of pick them up, try to see if I can get them to work. And yeah, so lots of fun.
My wife gets annoyed because I'm a collector too. As you see behind me, I have wrestling figures. I have a massive amount of Funko Pops. She gets annoyed because she's like, well, she's not a person of like collection. She's like, well, what's the point of this? You don't use them. You don't play with them. You don't do this. You don't do that. And my straight up answer is I was very broke growing up. I was a poor kid. I didn't get like anything. This is just me kind of living now.
Yeah, and I can't remember where I heard it. I heard it on a podcast years ago, but it was something like, the difference between hoarding and a collection is display. And I was like, yeah, as long as you got it somewhere and you're enjoying it, it's visible. If it's all tucked away in just like a crate somewhere, it kind of starts to feel like, what's the point? But
with that said,
that's just me. That's just, but like that's to be said. Is this camera is strategically placed, and I've got garbage everywhere, and there's just collected everything. But yeah.
But you know what? With that said, I have a whole storage unit where a lot of my collection sits right now because of circumstances. And I've actually started quietly selling off stuff. And because I'm like, why do I have this? Because now I'm not seeing it all the time. And I know it's there, but I'm not seeing it. So I'm like, why am I holding on to this?
Yeah, and eventually you just sort of, I try not to get too hung up on, holding on to things for like some sort of assumed future value or, any kid who grew up in the, the 90s, 2000s know like what a hype Beanie Babies were. And now how like, I think there might be some sort of like weird, like secondary market because like they thought they were going to be valuable and then they didn't. So then people got rid of them. Then people wanted them back. So the people who wanted them back now are having to, I don't know, but like something like that. But yeah, I don't know. I just like having neat stuff. Like I just, like, if I find an interesting VHS tape at the thrift store, like having a working VCR that'll play it. So like I've got a CRT TV there to play my games on and watch my movies and stuff like that. And
that's what's up, right? Like, and for a long period of time, I was very much out of the physical media stages. I was buying digitally everything, and then I started to realize one day because boredom got the best of me and I read through something and I was like, oh, so you could just turn off the rights to me owning this at any point in time. I can't watch it or I can't play it. And I was like, you know what? Fuck this. I'm switching back to physical media because at least if those titles and licenses disappear, I still own it.
Yeah, like you're like an iTunes purchase is it's like a lifetime rental is how they refer to it. So like, like I have like a vinyl collection. And there's records in my collection that my dad gave to me that he listened to when he was a kid. And, if I have children or somebody who gets my record collection will still be able to listen to those albums. But like, if you have your whole collection on iTunes and then you pass away and your kids don't get access to that. They don't get your digital collection. They just click it. It's just gone. So, right. There's that kind of stuff too. I like to own something if I can, but at the same time, as a big horror movie fan, it's nice to not have to spend a bunch of money to buy some sort of like obscure film just to realize it sucks. Yeah. Like I could just like pirate a version of like some like I'm into like really gory horror movies and stuff. So there are lots of ones that have like, oh, it was only ever released for this and it got banned in so many countries and it's so hard to find. But like when you actually go and watch it, it's kind of been more hyped up than anything else. So it's nice for those situations, but I don't know. I just like finding weird, random stuff and checking it out. Like if I find a movie studio I've never heard of with like a shitty title, I'm in, I'll buy it and check it out.
So aside from the baseball, I believe that's plastic. I don't know. I didn't get quite a good look at it. Yeah. What else you got on hand with you in that studio right now? You want to show off, man? Because I'm always intrigued.
Yeah. Well, yeah. There was this. It is a plastic baseball bat. Yes, but yeah, there was Thumbtacks. That was from last night. New Fear City. Oh, this was actually another thing from last night that Casanova Valentine uses pretty regularly. It's an Everlast boxing glove, and we've got barbed wire on that there. So
I seen that. I think you posted that on Instagram the other day.
Yep.
And I showed my kid that, my oldest, and he goes, "What the fuck are we going to use that for?" And I was like, "Fuck around and find out, and maybe I'll get it."
Well, actually, I'm in Casanova. He calls it the Stinger, which is actually it's a reference to like an old Simpsons bit. I think it's the episode where Homer, he becomes a boxer, and like instead of boxing, he just can like get punched in the face for 8 rounds, and the other guy like passes out, so he wins by default, something like that. But anyways, yeah, the trainer like shows him a boxing glove and goes, "Oh yeah, this one's the Stinger," and it's just got barbed wire wrapped around it. But yeah, so that's what the reference to that. But no, they used that one last night. What else do I got here? We've got gusset plates. These are intentionally what they're for is for framing houses. Like when you have 2 trusses at the top of a roof, these are what you hammer in between the 2 of them. This one is actually fun because this one was actually used in Toronto at our show Malice at the Palace, and right there, that's Cruel. That's a bunch of Cruel's blood. So in some sort of slasher movie scenario, we could probably utilize that to make some sort of weapon that we can use to kill him. There's something. It's useful to have his DNA.
Right. And I know what that is because when I interviewed Casey Moore, because I never got a good look at it when I was at Crazy 8, and I was like, "What the fuck was that you guys are like driving into each other's heads?" And he goes, "Oh, the framing shit you use for like this." I'm like, "Oh, okay." Like they just pass it off as such a casual fucking thing, and I'm like, what?
I don't know. These things are really sharp. Like I cut my fingers on them every time I work with them. Like these things are probably an inch, maybe a little less, a little more, and there is 100 plus. Like
there's no logo.
I don't know. Those guys take those. Like they'll take them, and then like after the show, like PD skills will help us like sweep the venue afterwards. And I'm like, how did you? I don't get it, but it's incredible. But yeah, that's one of the weird things about this is starting to do it and then talking to other people who do weapons and sort of the frustration of like how difficult it is to come up with something like truly new and original, just because there is kind of a narrow window of stuff that's usable. Because if you get too obscure with like gusset plates, not many people know what they are. So it's not really much of a visual impact. Like you'll almost get more of a reaction from Lego than you will from a gusset plate if someone doesn't. I mean, when you ram it in the head and the blood really starts going, but if you just kind of like if some guy like holds it up to the audience, people don't really know what it is. But if you like dump Lego out of a bucket, like everyone kind of can relate. But there's also the stuff that's just like wildly dangerous, or just stuff that could like really seriously do damage, or anything organic, like like even skewers are difficult, but like cactus or toothpicks, anything that can like break off and like cause an infection. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff you got to think about. So it's very difficult, and I don't know if I'll ever truly come up with something new. I'd love to. I mean, that would be amazing to have that feather in my cap. But yeah,
I don't know why my head went to this. Maybe because my dad owned a lawn care business. But what about a weed whacker? But instead of like the little whatever the vinyl that's used, you attach like belts that you put around your waist as the fucking spinner. Just whack somebody with it repeatedly. I
mean, it definitely could be done. I know obviously weed whackers are pretty iconic. But yeah, it definitely could be done. But yeah, there's those little ones, but it's just in terms of like, there's like thumbtacks, light tubes, gusset plates, spark. There's like those little like staple things, but trying to introduce or like think of a new sort of like
a new invention in the sense, right?
But not even like there's new invention, but even like a new just like little thing, like a little extra ingredient that you can add to the whole sort of mix is surprising. And like with anything, anytime anyone realizes what I do, that there's always weapon suggestions and things. But yeah, you do what you can with what you have, and obviously there's a budget that we have to work within, and obviously talent has to agree to things. Unless you're hardcore, then I have to just be careful what I pitch to him because he'll just do anything. But
dude, that was still mind blowing. You used like that Godzilla dildo at that. I've never seen a grown man swing a dildo at another grown ass man. Like that was wild to me.
Actually, you might be one of the only people who would catch it. But if you watch the New Fear City match, Matt Cash versus Casanova, I brought it back. I brought it because I brought it to New Fear City with me, and they slammed it on the Cass slammed it on the wall, and then like kind of threw Cass.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, that's part of my arsenal now.
I love that, but that scares me at the same time.
Yeah.
What if you attach some thumbtacks to it or something, man? Just whipping it with a fuck.
I have done I guess a normal dildo. That one's like some sort of weird like like pyramid monster thing. But a more phallic regular dildo. But I've done that with thumbtacks, but yeah.
Just want to point out that these sex toys that people have created nowadays is such a weird expectation now, because like women, what are you doing with these things? And men that are interested in these things, why do we own these things?
I'm just, like, if
I know you're not that young, but come on.
if that's what you're into, and you can get like high quality silicone that's like sterile and clean, and you're not going to be like using produce or I don't know, like something that'll hurt. Like,
yeah, that's fair.
To each their own, I suppose. But like, I'm just, I'm glad the people who want it have access to it, and the people who don't want it just don't have to worry about it. So cool.
It just blows my mind that people want a fucking alien tentacle or something. Like that's all I mean by it. Like, do you like? All for it, but like, wow.
Why not? But yeah, no, like if you have a fans bring the weapons match, someone will bring sex toys. It's just a given. It's just what happens. Like, yeah, that's what's good. I don't know.
When I say I wasn't expecting it, I wasn't expecting it. But hey, now I know for the next time if there's that.
I'm just thankful that black monstrosity was given to me like in the delivery packaging. Like it was the box. I opened it. Like there was like a shrink wrap bag. Like I opened the package as new. So I was like, okay, I'm comfortable with this.
Yeah, okay, that makes it a little bit more easier to digest knowing that it was brand new now. Okay.
Yeah. Inbox, like, yeah.
The teddy bear dildo was interesting.
Yeah, that was a combination of two things. Someone else just brought like another sex toy. I don't know if you call it a dildo, but it had like the regular part, but then it also had like a little guy, little thing coming up. So yeah. But yeah, that one, yeah. And then someone brought like just a teddy bear just for fun. So yeah, I don't know. I've got my ring crew. It was just go out and put the stuff around the ring, and if you see an opportunity for something funny or a little, just go for it. Like,
there's always room for comedy, even in the hardcore of the matches, right?
Like, just a little bits, or like I don't know, you could be a little silly, or like I don't know, No, wrestling, you don't need to take it too seriously, but we have our serious, more dramatic moments, but that's fun.
Now, before I start wrapping up with you, is there? Again, I don't want names, I don't want promotions, I don't want anything like that when I ask this. Is there anybody that you've come across where you're just like, please don't ever come back, and I don't want to work with you?
Not specifically. I mean, I don't really deal with booking much specifically. I sort of, even though I'm part owner, I just sort of, the card is booked, and then once the sort of general shape of the card is, I reach out and then work on with the wrestlers on the matches. And some people are a bit more willing to participate in that conversation than others, but no, thankfully, and I would say honestly, like everyone I've worked with has been, worst case scenario, just like I didn't really talk to them that much, but they're all nice people. Yeah, nothing really. No.
No, I'm not just.
No, I understand. No, I understand. But yeah,
no. But just to clarify for everybody watching too, I'm not looking for a clickbait answer. I'm not looking for a soundbite. I'm just genuinely asking a question.
Yeah.
Because sometimes there is those people you don't want to work with.
Yeah, thankfully, I mean, I'd be ignorant to say that'll never come up in my history doing this, but thankfully, so far, everyone's been wonderful. And I guess at the end of the day, as long as you're sort of professional, and if you got personal stuff outside of the locker room, just don't bring it into the locker room. Be professional. As weird as it is, if you just come up and do your job, then. Cool.
Sounds like the message I tell my kids when it comes to their sports. If what happens on the field or the ice, leave it there. Don't take it off there.
Or like vice versa, right? You know, if you have like if you have personal issues with somebody, you know, and you're working,
you leave it where it was. You don't bring.
You're working a match with them, like just work the match, and yeah.
I know you're supposed to be impartial, as you're the man that does the cleanup and helps them set up. But do you have a favorite?
If I had to just pick one standout sort of thing from Canadian Deathmatch so far, I think it would be just sort of the rise of Brian Samuels. That part has been so heartwarming to me, and it's been so amazing to see him develop. Not to say that there aren't talented people on the roster, but it was just it was our second show. We had a really last minute cancellation. Somebody was injured and couldn't make it. And
his fake pockets show up.
I don't get into that whole drama. They did Wrestler's Court about that, and I was the bailiff. I just stood there kind of at the front, and I was the bailiff. I didn't.
I opened up with him, and it popped him on it, so it was good.
Yeah, but it just we had a late last minute cancellation, injury, just sort of scrambling to find somebody. He showed up, with very little notice, and just had a banger with Wade Allen. Like, just really gave it his all, and he'd only really done a death match or two before that. But yeah, just him and how the fans have received him, and just the sort of the position he is in as like a character now at the end of the year, or the end of, I guess I think of like Crazy 8 1 to 2 as like a the year in the fiscal
that's your
year.
mania, right? Like,
yeah, it's the fiscal year, the storyline year. But that's just been incredible. Like, I mean, he's an awesome guy. I really like chatting with him, but just that as like a character, that rise, and just how it it's one of those things that can only happen in wrestling, right? It's like the reason why they're like, oh, just show up with your gear just in case. You never know what can happen. Like, and he see him getting bookings elsewhere, and it's just, but the entire roster,
very genuine.
Honestly, I would have died happy if I just got to help out with the first Crazy 8 and like shake hands with Judge Joe Dredd. Like, if that was all I ever did in deathmatch, I would be more than happy. So like every day after that is just like, I'm just happy to be here.
Oh yeah. I mean, man, I'm stuttering today. I apologize. That's one thing that I've tried to get over in my fear, is because I do this, and I have somewhat of a social anxiety to a sense. I can talk. When you get me talking like we were talking now, I go. I got the gift of gab when we're like this, right? I can go. But like, to see you in person and have a conversation, I'm extremely awkward at times. I find it hard to approach people. But like, if I don't get the opportunities I get, right? And I push myself out of that element. And Canadian Deathmatch as a whole, and I credit you guys for this whole project that I'm working on with the Shadowsphere hard deathmatch style interviews. It's because of you guys that I felt comfortable enough in my own skin to have these conversations with the wrestlers that were on the card, to have these interviews. And there's other elements like Rush Rancid help pushing me through when I need that extra boost, or Hardcore being supportive, or like different guys that I know in the community, like Rusty Blackwell and stuff like that. They've helped me come out of my shell a little bit, but I am extremely remiss when I say that this whole season of Shadowsphere is literally in part and thanks to Canadian Deathmatch. Because without you guys, I don't have this season. I don't have that confidence back in me to get going.
Well, it means a lot to me. It genuinely does. And like, thank you for saying that. And it was, and that's how I got the role I did. I just reached out. Like, that's how anything in my life that I've gotten that I'm like really proud of was something that I just, you deal with the nervousness and you just go for it. You just ask the question. You just ask if you can help. You ask if you can. I've been in a relationship for 15 years. You asked if you could go on that date. You asked if you could do that. It's just, if I didn't do that thing, I wouldn't be where I am now. So I just reached out to Canadian Deathmatch and said, hey, do you need someone to help? And, was able to help with that. And then, again, last night, I got to like work a show with Casanova Valentine just because like I asked him if I could. So, sometimes you're going to get no's. Sometimes people are going to ignore you. Sometimes you're not going to get what you want, but you're not going to get it unless you ask. So just put yourself out there, give it a shot, but also just kind of be grateful, but understanding when you get a no as well.
Exactly. You got to do the thing that scares you the most in order to get anywhere in life.
Yeah, but I'm really glad to hear that, man. And we're always around. We're happy to see you at shows. If we can do anything else for you, like I don't know, that's what this is all about. Is if there's anything we can do for people, or just it's a weird thing to be able to say that with deathmatch wrestling, but like it's just we're building a community. Everybody can participate. Everybody's got something to bring to the table, and like let us know what you got, and we'll find a way to use it.
And that's the thing I plan to, and I keep reiterating this to everybody. I've showed my cousin this, and he goes, "What the fuck is that?" And I'm like, "It's entertainment and it's fun.
It's just visceral, in your face. It's the closest you can get to like something like that. It's something most people have never seen in their life, and like because it's wrestling, because we're 50 years into the post kayfabe world. You don't. There's not that worry in the back of your head of that, like, this is real, this is dangerous, I'm scared. Like everybody gets to play a part. Everyone gets to, like, as a fan, you got to play your role, and there's certain cues, but like, it's like a play you're all doing together. Because if the audience doesn't play their part, the wrestlers don't get like don't get the crowd to like hype them up, and like everybody's there for a reason, and it's but if there's anything else people can do, we've got Maddie's sister and a couple other people downstairs stitching people up and cleaning up blood. We've got people who help us sweep up. We've got people that do the graphics, or people who if we need, like I had there's a woman, Belle, who does Pookie Wrestlers. Like I know she's really artistic, so I needed a door spray painted. So I was like, hey, if I buy spray paint, can you do this for me? No problem. So yeah, we just have a community of people who want to help us and make something cool, and we'll do it.
With that being said, I'm going to wrap it up here. We're going to reach out to you again. We're going to line up another conversation down the road. We're going to revisit these conversations and see where you stand maybe 6 months from now and how things have gone since then. But huge shout out to Canadian Deathmatch Wrestling for opening a door for me, and I'm hoping to open many doors for them without introducing them to an audience that doesn't likely maybe view deathmatch wrestling as anything other than ew. But with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, make sure you're heading out to Canadian Deathmatch shows. Make sure when you see Billy, you shake his hand. Maybe offer him a hot dog because he looks hungry out there as he's delivering all these things to people. But no, for real, make sure you shake his hand and thank him for the entertainment. And make sure you're kind to all the indie wrestlers on the shows. Make sure you're buying their merch or even just chanting for them. Whatever supporting you can do, make sure you support your indie friends. That being said, ladies and gentlemen, that's Billy. I'm Shadow. Thank you for tuning in to Welcome to the Shadowsphere. Good night.
Bye.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.